We're joining Justin Jackson, a tree care professional and bonsai enthusiast. Justin, I had the pleasure of sitting in on a presentation of yours and was just fascinated by, first of all, the diversity of bonsai forms. And so you've pulled together a nice collection here. Tell us a bit about, I guess probably want to start with what is bonsai and then the diversity that we find.
Sure, bonsai means pot in a tree or tree in a pot. So really pretty much anytime that you put a plant into a pot, then it's a bonsai technically, but of course that's not the style that people typically think of whenever they think of a bonsai tree. They've got some preconceived notions about it.
And this is an ancient art coming from the Chinese.
Right,
we always
from
think
China.
Japan.
And then Japan is the one that really changed it up and stylized it more and made it more formal and made it more of the bonsai that most people know today.
Okay. Well, walk me through some of the different styles that we find in the forms of bonsai.
Sure. So this first one is an example of literati, and this is where the bottom of the tree leans away from the pot, and then the top of it has some growth back towards the point of origin of it. And they chose literati because they think it's more of the learned or literate forms of bonsai, and so they think of it more as a learned sort of form.
It reminds me of trees up on a cliff where it's real windswept.
Right. And actually there's windswept style too, but on the windswept style what you'll see is none of the stuff will point back towards the tree. It'll all point away. So this would come up here and this would lean away and all the growth would be away from the where it comes out of the ground at.
Okay. So really windswept up. That would be the cliff style.
And here's another example of cascade. This is one that you might see on the side of a cliff right here. It's kind of hard to see it, but it comes up out of the pot and then it comes down over the side, and the foliage is caused to grow up still, so it's not hanging down upside down or anything.
So we prune off all the lower stuff and train it to be growing upward from
right
there.
And this one you can see I've got some wire wrapped around the branches there and bent them up so that they're upright.
Okay. Up on top you have a nice collection where there's several trees put together.
Yes, this is a group planting, and the goal in creating a group planting is to try to create the image of a forest and the perspective of a forest. And so what you want to have is the trees closest to the viewer on the front side of the pot, as we would call it, would be taller, and they would get smaller as they recede back into the background. So in this one we've got tall trees up here and small ones up here, and you try to create the illusion of distance by doing that. Interesting
technique. I like that. Tell me about this guy on the front.
Sure, this one right here, this is an example of gin, where we've taken a branch and stripped off all the bark of it. And so we've got a lot of dead wood on here, and you can use lime sulfur solution to try to bleach it a little bit and make it more white. And then that's just kind of a fun thing to do with them sometimes to make the illusion of age on there.
Gives it this driftwood effect.
Right.
Well, Justin, I pulled this one out of your collection because I just loved this huge trunk at the base and how it gives the plant so much character.
Yes, the big trunk on there, it gives the appearance of great age. You know, on the larger trees, the older trees, you'll see a big trunk proportional to the height of it because that trunk gets fatter and fatter. And so that's what we're doing here. This one was actually the Gilpin Holly that was growing out in the open, and then we've cut it back and trimmed it and pruned it and got the roots back small so that now it fits into a small pot and has that fat trunk but a short height to it.
So we cheated giving it some age. You have some nice examples here of getting to this point, the aerial roots.
Right.
And also this one is kind of unique because there's a rock growing under the root.
Sure, so what I'm doing right here, this is a Frankish Methuselah, and so what I'm trying to do, they're really known for their aerial roots. They're a close relative of the banyan tree where the roots just rain down. And so this one right here, I've got a lot of sphagnum moss that's packed around the trunk, and then I put some plastic wrap over it, and then I keep that nice and wet in there to encourage it to shoot a bunch of roots out from the trunk and radiate out into there and fill that space. And so eventually what I'll do is take this plastic wrap off there and pull the moss away, and I'll have a whole mess of roots in there. And at that point I can either put them down in the pot or I can put something up under there. Or this is an example of one where we've got a lot of aerial roots where we've gradually pulled the dirt down away from the dirt line up there before. And so now we've got these aerial roots exposed.
So this one you exposed existing roots, and this one you're forcing those roots to grow.
And you can do it either way to create this effect. This could also be done, for example, if this were initially the trunk down in here, you would be able to cut that trunk once I get a lot of roots up in here. I can cut the trunk off down here and get rid of all these old roots, and then the new roots will all be up here, and I could put them up in the air, or I could put them over a rock like this one, and then gradually as they fatten up, they'll hug and squeeze into that rock and grow around it.
It seems like the possibilities are rather endless when you get into working with
little tricks to it.
bonsai. Another thing is the plant material. You can use a lot of different materials here, and as we were pulling plants, I wanted to show some of that variety. We have the jade plant in front and some flowering specimens up top. The azalea is not flowering right now, but I'm sure puts on a spring show for you.
Yeah, there's quite a few flowers.
And the hibiscus. So when it's bonsai like this and it's a bit more compact, do you find the flowers smaller on that azalea?
No, generally the flowers are about the same size as you would typically expect, and that's what you see with the flower, and also there's a lot of fruiting trees as well that you can use, and the fruit will still stay the same size also. So you'll still end up with pretty good sized fruit. So if you've got a tree that's got a lot of large fruit, then you'll want to cut that fruit off there. It gets to be so much weight it'll bend the branches down and potentially break them even.
Okay, well, that's interesting that it can still produce that much. And what is this one working towards? Tell me about that tree.
Sure, this one I'm just going for a classical broom style. This is where the trunk comes up and then it just branches out. This is a Chinese elm. And what we're going with on this one is the broom style, where we've got a single trunk coming up and a lot of branches radiating out of the top. So it has sort of the typical broom style that you'd expect to see out of an elm tree or something like that.
Well, I'm really excited to see the great diversity in forms and plant material. Thank you so much for sharing your collection.
Sure, thank you.